In last episode that we presented, we're talking about the gods in a general. Now I would like to expand the subject to try to to make you start to think what is the world that we are living in. Is this world made for us actually, or is the world that is created by someone else for somebody else? What do I actually mean by saying so? Wherever you go and know any place on this planet that is not full of some kind of unknown or unexplained artifacts, that every man with a sober brain will see that these edifices, that these monuments, that these um, objects are definitely not made by human beings for the purpose that human being can use. When I said human being, I actually mean the us as a human being, Homo sapiens sapiens, as we called the modern human being in a scientific sense. What I'm actually saying you that let's say the pyramids as such, it is obvious that these objects are not made by human beings, no matter what scientists want to say, because let's focus on, for example, these three best known pyramids, in Plateau Giza, Khafre, Mykonos, and Cheops. Um, if you looked at them, there is no any human being on this planet Earth that can actually answer the purpose of these objects, although they are made precisely to be fulfilled some kind of purpose. No matter that we actually don't understand the purpose of the pyramids, nor we can comprehend what purpose of these pyramids can be. But all we can say as a sober human being is that is not made for us, because effort to build those pyramids and sphinx as such, let's put it sphinx in this project, is totally unknown to us, totally unknown to what any human being can use any of the pyramids for what purpose. On the other hand, the efforts to build pyramids is enormous. resources that been used are enormous. We cannot even remotely comprehend the task forces, the resources, and the knowledge, above all, to create such a monumental structure as pyramids are. So, what is the pyramid? We must accept the fact that these objects was made not for human beings, but for whom? Who else was to build such monumental structures, and for what purposes? Story that pyramids have a solely purpose to keep the body of the pharaohs and some holy creatures like crocodiles and bears and cats and all that jazz are simply not the truth. All pyramids are empty. Empty. There is no pharaoh's body in pyramids. And above that, when the pharaoh is dead, why his son will spend mountains of money to make something that will just kept his father father's flesh, not his father's flesh, in some sort of obscure chamber. So, after all what I said, we must agree, all of us, that purpose of build the pyramids is definitely not in any sense to keep the body of deceased pharaoh or his wife or his other deceased members of the family. So what else could be? It is obvious that pyramids made by some other beings, not necessarily as humans as we are. Maybe those creatures, those beings, whatever we call them, are not the humans at all, or that they are not from this planet. But pyramids are just a part of it. There is also so many megalithic structures all over the world that we don't have remotely clue why they are made and what for. We very often heard about the Stonehenge, for example. But the structure of Stonehenge is not at all biggest or monumental, most monumental structures in known world. Nowadays, for example, in Russia, there is a far, far more bigger and more complex structures than Stonehenge. And who built them? How those uh, how those stones, megalithic stones, that are heavier than 1500 tons per each one, was made. What tools are used to be cut in an extreme precise manner, and what for? What for they made such a long, huge wall from super megalithic stones in a way that no any machine in the modern world can even be compared, that can move even inch of these structures. And about 20 years ago, in part of Turkey, was discovered the they said that it is religious site. It's in a place called Derinkuyu. And so far in the last 20 years, they said that they unearthed, unearthed only 3% of that megastructure. Who built this, and what was the purpose of it? On some of the megalithics is carved, apart from the animals that we know that they lived in past, and some of them they lived even in today's world. There are also animals that they cannot recognize, which doesn't mean that at some remote past they didn't exist. It just means that we don't know those animals, that we cannot recognize them. World is, as I said, packed with the megastructures. In Zimbabwe, there is also megalithic structures made by stone, that the people who lived in that area, they never have tools to move these kind of structures. In Ethiopia, there is thousands upon thousands of stelas that they cannot be cut or erected in a position where they are, in a way that they are nowadays. So who cut these megastellas? who erected them, and with what purpose. It is so obvious that average human being, no matter how many people there are, that simply they cannot make that structure, and even if they do, what is the purpose of that? Why do people build so many of these structures, erected them, and then leave them alone? There must be purpose of it. And if it's not made by the human beings, by us, by that kind of average height and weight, which we cannot make that, which we cannot make even today. Why it is created and why it is put in a way it is. One of the oldest town on the planet Earth is Baalbek, nowadays in Lebanon, in which is made huge and enormous plateau made out of the perfectly carved stones, which average weight is around 450 tons. In a close vicinity of that plateau is the so-called the remnants of the temple of Jupiter, with some of the megalithic stones that they are heavier as much as 800 tons, putting one on top of the other. Of course, that so-called Jupiter temple uh, has nothing to do with Romans, because Romans didn't know how to manipulate with such a megalithic structures. One of the also mysterious place is a plateau on Jerusalem, where supposedly says that Solomon temple was erected there. Such precise plateau cannot be made even today. So some of the authors like Zaharia Sitchin, Erich von Daniken, name only these two, they think that these plateaus were actually plateaus for the spaceship, spacecrafts of the gods. But who gods there are? The gods that use the crafts to fly from there to there, they're not gods, because God can fly from there to there without no using any sort of edifice or machinery. So it is obvious that either before us or maybe together with us, lived the one race that we don't know nothing about them. Or at least we know some some knowledge, removed knowledge, or even the memories hidden in a clouds of storytellers and legends about the race of giants that Bible talk about them as Nephilims, that they came in a certain period of time, descended from the heaven, and start to teach the people certain crafts. But they've been also described as a very, very, very cruel beings. On the other part of the world, in South America, Mesoamerica, and even North America. For example, one of the well-known place is the place where the Statue of Liberty is placed. But the plateau on which is uh, put is totally unknown, and it's made long, long, long before the 19th century. And so many pillars, megalithic pillars, laid down in an ocean bed by the New York City in ruins. Who built these pillars? Who broke them, smashed them into pieces, and put into riverbed? Ocean bed also. In Mesoamerica, there is the biggest structure that humans ever made is a pyramid called Teotihuacan. No one have a slightly idea what that pyramid means, what is created for, and what was the purpose of it. Also, so many towns in South America, like Pumapunku, for example. The ruins of the town of Pumapunku is totally unknown who built them. This is by all means, even if it is smashed by certain kind of explosion, uh, the most modern town. Although if it is in, although it is in ruins, but no one can even remotely comprehend Who was the builders of that mysterious city called Puma Punku? And why they destroyed the town? Why is it so that somebody creates something such sophisticated, obviously lived some time in this city, and left it in a ruins by the meaning of kind of purposely demolishing walls and structures at all. Also, the other modern town in our sense, although it is uh, uh, created, Poznanski said, Poznanski is a Polish archaeologist who spent more than 30 years trying to find out the meaning of the town of Tijuanaco, that it is no less than 15,000 years old town. How does he know? After painstakingly um, researching, he came to the conclusion that certain distances in between doors and certain monuments will show you the alignments of the sun and the moon at a certain period of time. And calculating, he came to the conclusion that it is no less than 15,000 years. So, on the other place on the earth is the underwater structures of the um, close, relatively close to the Japanese islands, and they are on a depth of around 50 meters below the sea level. Those sorts of structures, megalithic structures, are something that before the people go under the water and film them, is that such structures are never been seen in any part of the world. So who built this and why they are 80 meters below the sea level? It is obvious that the structures were built before sea come and covered this space, this place, this towns or temples or whatever purpose of these buildings are. So it is obvious that this world is not, or at least part of the time, was inhabited by the only us as a human beings, I mean, but that other beings lived probably in the same time or before us. So where these beings are now, Others went to their own place from where they come, or they were always lived in a planet Earth, on a face of the planet Earth. One thing that I didn't mention in this program is mysterious structures called mesa or mesas in a plural. And it is kind of mountains, not mountains, the hills, that they are perfectly cut and smooth. And by the shape, they almost look as the tree being cut from its bottom. Actually, how messes are created, who cut them in such precise manner. And one of the most mysterious structure of that kind is called the Devil's Hill, and it's created out of thousands of so-called hexagonal, but very, 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 very precise hexagonal structures, which can be seen only as a tree. The similar structures exist on the islands, on the north part of Ireland. And no one can, even in a most wild imagination, can imagine what these structures are. And more than that, what was the purpose of this structure? Because that is the point. Maybe it's more easier to find out how they built the pyramids. Although even plateau on a Giza to host these three pyramids is enormous. It's colossal task to be made. But even if we ignore that fact, that no human race can make that plateau in such a smooth way, so that erected the pyramids on that plateau could be possible. More curious than these three structures is what was the purpose of these structures. Because everybody knows that no one will build something that he cannot find out of use of it. So who we actually are. What is the world that we lived in? To whom that world belongs? Either to us or to some other creature that in a one period, unknown to us. It's simply all of them disappeared from the face of the earth. In collective memories of the human beings, they are kept and preserved as giants, cyclops, uh, great human beings that they were far more taller and stronger than any of human beings existed. So, in the next episode of our serial, we will try to explain how they live together with us. I mean, those giants that create all these megastructures. Are we living with them in harmonious ways, or did we clash with them? And did we conquer them? If we did, how we did it? If they simply left our planet, where did they go? Until our next episode, I wish you all the best. Try to think. Try to think. I've got no any answer. I'm just searching for the truth.